Hi, hello, welcome to Spell Day. We're covering a spell every single day of the year from the 5e PHP +3. Those +3 spells are homebrew spells. We're at +1 at the moment. You can back the playlist to find it. Today's spell is Magic Mouth.
I'll give you credit. I guess you are listening to me. But for the record, you don't have to go that slowly. Waddle over to the elevator and we'll continue the testing.
Second level illusion, Ritual. Casting time of 1 minute, range of 30 feet, components for somatic material, a small bit of honeycomb, and jade dust worth at least 10 gold pieces, which the spell consumes. Duration until dispelled. You implant a message within an object in range, a message that is uttered when a trigger condition is met. Choose an object that you can see that isn't being worn or carried by another creature, then speak the message, which must be 25 words or less, though it can be delivered over as long as 10 minutes. Finally, determine the circumstances that will trigger the spell to deliver your message. When that circumstance occurs, a magical mouth appears on the object and recites the message in your voice and at the same volume you spoke. If the object you chose has a mouth or something that looks like a mouth, for example the mouth of a statue, the magical mouth appears there so that the words appear to come from the object's mouth. When you cast the spell, you can have the spell end after it delivers its message, or it can remain and repeat its message whenever the trigger occurs. The triggering circumstance can be as general or as detailed as you like, though it must be based on visual or audible conditions that occur within 30 feet of the object. For example, you can instruct the mouth to speak when any creature moves within 30 feet of the object, or when a silver bell rings within 30 feet of it. If the object you chose has a mouth, that, Does that work on undead? Okay, Magic Mouth, recorded message. Which is way better than that magical doll magic item thing that deletes its message after it's expended. Just kind of like sending, you're limited to 25 words. It's second level in a ritual, which is, I don't know why I thought this was fourth level, but no, second level, that's a lot more accessible. Minus the part where there's a material component, which, understandable, because I could definitely imagine some player, if it didn't have a gold cost, or even NPCs, if it didn't have a gold cost, setting up magic mouths everywhere and on everything. But to go over some of the details and stuff you can actually use with it, can last 10 minutes, so the delayed message can... That's the issue, is it's 25 words. Why would you extend the delivery of 10 minutes? I guess have a specific part of a phrase, and then a second part of the phrase after a few minutes. Oh, actually, now I'm thinking about that. A villain that has, after a trap's occurred and the room's flooding with something, as the minutes are going by, it's continually just hurling insults. That's another thing. Outside of the details of the spell thematically wise and what I recommend using this for, or what I could perceive this being used for to some comedic effect, is Glad0s from Portal. Now, that may sound a bit strange, but what I mean by that is the megaphone villain. The villain that's off-screen but consistently harassing the player through loudspeakers or megaphones and the sound system of a building. Now, it's not exactly that because you can't project and overlook what they're doing at the exact moment, but if you have a villain who's petty enough and rich enough to then spend and booby-trap their dungeon with this all over the place, like, think about it. How many... Okay, a Serac probably has these lined in so many rooms. Just some petty lich in his dungeon, or some any petty spellcaster, placing this in different locations, just to make fun of, insult, goad, or, in one way I've used it in the campaign, disguise it as a building that's haunted. Now yes, it makes a physical mouth appear, but you could still have the mouth, like, around a corner or in a box, and hidden away. Audibly, it's still gonna come out. Or if you want to amplify it, because the noise comes out of the mouth at the same volume you spoke it through, you could put it at the base of a megaphone. Like, not the electronic ones, but the hand cones, and it'll project it further that way. Could also, in a strange way, set this up redstone or note block domino style Minecraft-wise, where you just have... Because it could be an audible trigger, so you could have a row of magic mouths, all with these, like, hand cones in front of it, and they're all singing in tune different parts of a song, or just acapella. Now that's an expensive, a very expensive acapella, but it's something that could be done. Another important thing, when you're casting the spell, it has to be an object that's not being worn or carried by a creature. That doesn't mean it can't be picked up and used afterwards, and the spell stays on it until it's dispelled, or if it's the one-time message you set. Because you can just leave this message to be triggered whenever the trigger occurs. So, if I was to bring something up, have like one of those Roman masks that has the human face on the front of it, and just implant Magic Mouth. Not to mention, you can place Magic Mouth multiple times on the same object and just set different triggers. So you can have that mask and even put it on an undead, and then just depending on the situation they're fighting through, what they're fighting, it could have a helmet that has its own encoded catchphrases, depending on the situation the person wearing it is in. I mean, that could be an entire goofy magic item on its own, but that also doesn't need to be a magic item with the way Magic Mouth works. Okay, also, that's the other thing. Outside of leaving a message somewhere, it's gonna look goofy, this is gonna be goofy, and in the player's hands, you can make it goofy, because it's 10 gold. Depending on how many times you need to cast this, that can add up quite quickly, but the fact it's a ritual, it's not taking a spell slot, and it's only 2nd level, that's pretty accessible. Especially because this is not a combat spell. This is all prep. And prep for what? It's for leaving a message. So, what messages are you leaving? In a dungeon or even in a museum, it could just be directions or talking about the display that you're in front of. It activates whenever a creature gets within 10 feet of it, because it doesn't have to be the 30 feet, just something within the 30 feet of it. So you could set it to some restriction a bit lower. And it can be visual or audible, so they do not need to be actually near, they don't need to be in line of sight. Which goes back to the box thing again. If the Magic Mouth hears something enter the room, or this specific door creak, or this one floorboard creak, it'll make a ghostly noise. Hide this in ceilings, the horns. Have you ever been to a haunted house? Or namely been on the other side of it? You could set this up so easily. The big limit on any of those pre-recorded messages is the 25 word limit. But the fact that it can also be an audio cue, which is brought up the note block example earlier, is that they can cue each other based off the last word said within a certain range. So that can kind of get over it, but and you can cast it on the same thing. So that can kind of get over the 25 word limit, but gets real expensive real quick. But anytime in a dungeon where a puzzle's coming up and you want to give a hint, something not written down, you could just have a Magic Mouth say it. And especially with the example of the statue or anything that already has a mouth, that's great. You can have a statue of a sphinx give out a riddle, and they have to answer it. And it's Magic Mouth that's saying it, and it's not anything else fancy. Though when it said if the thing already has a mouth, and then it gives the example of the statue after, does that mean a corpse could work? Because it animates, well, it doesn't animate, it's an illusion, but it makes it appear as if the mouth that's already on the thing is moving. Or it makes a mouth appear on whatever object it is. So a blank surface of like a mug, and let's say you finished it and it says refill. I don't know why anyone would ever put that at the bottom of a mug. That is horrifying. But you could do that, and then if you have it on a statue that has a mouth already, it will appear there instead of whatever location you had designated. Actually, can you designate the location? Because it also doesn't say the size of the object. Light said the size of the object. It can be up to a 10-foot cube object. Magic Mouth just says an object. Does that include structures? Or is it only parts of structures? Can this be on a wagon with a mouth? Can this be on a pencil or quill with a mouth? It gets weird. It gets real weird. I mean, it's Magic Mouth. What? When was that ever gonna be normal? And again, triggering circumstances as detailed or general as you want. And I gotta say, you can even put this on a sword and it just yells stab every time you stab someone. Look, there are just a bunch of creative opportunities with this. It doesn't have any kind of grand use world building wise. It's the example of like the museum or the riddles or the villain leaving some kind of message or the hiding and trying to trick someone ghost wise, Scooby-Doo wise. Everything else is some kind of utility though. And I know I've already been running off various ideas with it, but that's kind of the point of the spell and a lot of illusion spells is to how creative the person using it is. So, just like with the Mage Armor episode, I'm asking, not necessarily what you already do with this, because I'm not sure if ever anyone even uses this spell that often, but what are some creative uses you can think of to put Magic Mouth with? It can be as trolly as you want, it can be as serious as you want, it can be as like impactful economic-wise as you want, you know, just whatever angle you want. Put it down in the comments. Let's get wacky! 7 out of 10, not due to any immediate apparent grand use, but the fact it's relatively low level, it can last indefinitely until dispelled. And the 10 gold material cost kind of hurts it, but it's a ritual, so it's not taking the spell slot. It's just there's not really many downsides. I guess 6 out of 10, just because it isn't spell prep. I'm thinking of spell prep now. You're likely to take something else over this in general, even in day-to-day life. But 6 out of 10.